Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 18 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast presents Enchantress After Dark. This is a new series with the same great content. We just get a little bit more intimate with our guests. In the past 2 years, we have been the official podcast for the Allure signing in 2022 and Readers Take Denver convention in 2023. So for 2024, our convention is going to be Dark Star Con, happening August 29th and through September 1st in New Orleans, Louisiana. Dark Star Con is a book convention focused on audiobooks and what's next happening big in the industry of books, of audio. Visit the website to learn more about this event and get your tickets. And today I am chatting with the fabulous narrator Jill Smith. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating and how you got started.
I have been narrating since 2016. Originally, I was writing. I was a writer, but I had always really, really loved audiobooks, and my mom used to do just the most incredible reading when I was growing up. When she would read to us, she just did all the voices, and it was so cool. And I always thought, what a cool job that would be. And so, yeah, I guess in probably 2015, I talked to another narrator who was telling me how he got into narrating and narrating books independently and like using ACX and everything. Because at that time, I still assumed like, oh, you probably had to have an agent or like, you know, publishers had to approach you about narrating, but he was like, no, you can do this as an indie narrator. And so I got set up, you know, with my profile and started auditioning, and I loved it. I've always loved narrating. And then that led to just doing more voice acting in general. So now I do all kinds of stuff. It's still audiobook heavy, I would say my schedule is, but I do commercials and video games and explainer videos, tutorials, corporate film, like all kinds of different things. So it's a really fun job, and I do really enjoy it.
So we probably have heard you somewhere before.
You might have.
As a girl that was in corporate for 16 years, well, Disney World,
Ooh.
The training that we used to go through, I was like, yeah. And I think the other day I heard a commercial for Viagra, and I'm like, wait, is that Troy?
Right. That did start happening. Like when I did for the first couple of commercials, like I had a friend call me one day and she's like, I think I just heard you on a commercial. And I'm like, yep, that was it. Yeah. But yeah, you may have heard my overly cheerful voice, like explaining workplace safety to you or something, you know, all the exciting stuff.
Yeah, see, I would not have muted you. That's for sure, at least. There's some there that were like, nope. Caption.
Good.
Since they figured out a way that we couldn't zoom, you know, speed up the videos. They got wise.
Yeah. Right. That's tricky of them, because I feel like, you know, that's what everyone does. You put the video on mute or whatever, and then you do something else while it's playing, and then it looks like you did it. You know.
Yep.
Not that I would ever have done something.
No, we don't condone that sort of behavior.
No, you watch all the training videos all the way through, and you pay attention.
We should have some training videos for people that are on social media today, though.
Ooh, that is probably true. Yeah.
But you mentioned that you were originally writing. Are you still doing that when you have the time? Or have you like, you know what, I'll get to that in a couple of years? What does that look like for you?
I still do some writing, but voiceover is definitely more the full-time job. I feel like up until a few years ago, I had so much energy for like both, you know, and I'd be like, oh, I'd get done with my audio day. And then I'd be like, and now I'm going to write for a couple of hours. And now I get done with audio stuff and I'm like, I will make dinner and watch TV and go to bed at 9 p.m. So I feel like writing has been a little more neglected over the past few years.
It happens. Always something's got to give sometimes, where as much as we want to be superhuman and do everything, you can't. I keep trying to remind myself that, though.
Right. Yeah, you do have to remind yourself of that. Yeah.
And it's okay. We don't have to feel guilty about it either.
Right. It's good to have a balance.
Yes, definitely. So with all the different types of narration that you've done, is there one that you sometimes go, oh, yeah, we have that on the schedule?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I would say it can depend on the day. So if I've been doing a lot of like commercials or something, and then I get one random thing, like a workplace safety video, that's less of like a product advertisement. I'm like, I'm glad that's on the docket today, just for something a little different. But yeah, I'm always excited for audiobooks. That really is my favorite. And so I'm always glad to get to do that.
Do you have to do any kind of prep work for yourself? Like either like mentally psych yourself up. I'm like, okay, today's going to be a dark romance or today's going to be a historical and we're going to do this. And then anything else differently with your voice?
Sometimes, yeah. So obviously the voice changes depending on different conditions, so like in the cold weather, my voice gets really dry. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to record this today because I need like a deeper, richer sounding voice and my like scratchy winter voice won't hit that this morning. So sometimes I have to adjust the schedule a little bit depending on like what's going on with my voice itself. I've found that if I am doing like British accents, I feel like I use a slightly different register than American accents. So sometimes on a day where my voice sounds bad in American, it sounds okay in British. And so there are just like random quirks like that I've learned over the years where I'm like, oh, today I could maybe do like a Regency historical, but I can't get that like nice rich sound that I would want for this, whatever other type of book. So it's unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. Girl, no, I've heard, and you guys have always told me about like sometimes first thing in the morning, you're a little bit more husky.
Yes,
I
do the sexy voices in the morning. Yep.
Yes. In the morning kind of thing, because it's a little like you're down here.
Or when I'm sick, yeah, I'll like get right on that microphone and I'll be like, I have a sexy sick voice. Like I gotta do it fast.
I mean, make sure that you're not like the snotting kind of thing. In
right.
between.
Sometimes it's the wrong kind of sick and it just sounds like I'm like dripping everywhere. But sometimes it's just like a nice, like raspy. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that when I'm healthy. So.
Yeah. Right. Oh God. I was told that once and I'm like that, oh, your voice, because it was deep. I was sick. And then I was on the phone, like, yeah, I give good phone. So I've heard those before as far as the time, but I have not ever heard about the accents being at a different kind of register. So like, oh, I'm a little, morning thing. Maybe I'll do this instead of that. That's interesting.
Yeah. I think it has to do with like, like a British RP accent tends to have more inflection than American accents. So I'm probably in a slightly higher register more often, like with different syllables and sounds, that hit those inflections. Yeah, I think it's something to do with that. But there are definitely times where the accent affects how I feel my voice sounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Today we're not doing the Irish one. It's okay.
Good.
I applaud you guys from the accents. I pick them up real quick when I like travel and never realizing why I was doing it. It was just like and to this day, I have to really practice the word car because I was about to, when did I get married? So I was 22. So for 22 years, I was car this, car that, car. Get married. I blame that a lot of things, by the way. Got married to Boston, Massachusetts for our honeymoon in January. No one gave me the spiel about that, but that's a different conversation.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we go and pick up the car, again, part of the different conversation, because you don't need a fucking car in Boston.
Yeah.
The lady behind the counter was talking in her Boston accent, and I heard it for a week. So I was there with like, going to Scotland Yard, stuff like that with the car. And after a while, I got home, it all went away except for that word. That one word. I'm like, I'm going to go to the car.
You got stuck with the Boston car.
I'm like, the one of all the fucking words,
Right.
Let me get the car.
See, I feel like that is a fun thing to have, though.
It is. It is.
It's an accent quirk, yeah.
Yes, it's an accent quirk. But because I picked them up when I've gone to Connecticut, get a little bit of that upper northeast. So when I go to Texas, that little thing, and it's like, I have them, I'm like, are you trying to no, I just pick them up. But it's while I'm there. Afterwards, for a while they're gone, and I try to recreate it, and I can't. So you guys having to practice and do these accents for 9 hours straight, and then go into something different, and then another day doing this. Or sometimes when you guys go to conventions and do things, you're put on the spot. Like, now say it in British,
Right. I know. I feel like I'm more like you, where I pick things up while I'm listening to them, and it doesn't necessarily like hold over super well. So, I feel like I would be terrified to do like a put on the spot, like do a wheel of accents, kind of thing. But that's kind of part of the prep work I do. If I'm doing an accent, then I just, I listen to that accent for whatever, 10 minutes and then I feel like I'm in it. So that'll hopefully last the recording session. And then, and then the next day we start again.
Goodness. It doesn't ever go into the after you've done recording and you're making dinner and then you're like, bloody hell.
Well, I do. I feel like I do that a lot anyway. It doesn't have to be from recording. I talk to my dog in a lot of voices, or if I'm watching a show, then I'll want to do like the voices of the characters and, while I'm making dinner. So just to amuse myself. Yeah.
Do you give your dogs their own voices?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah. Although I think my mom actually came up with my dog's voice. So it would have been about 13 years ago. And she's like a kind of she's like a very pretty, dog. And my mom was like, I think she has a voice you wouldn't expect, though. I think she has like a really deep, husky, like, hey guys, what's going on? And so my mom started doing that for her. And now we all do it. And we all have those moments where we've admitted that we forget that someone is doing the dog's voice. We just think that she's actually saying that to us.
Yes.
And then we're like, no, that's just my roommate, like saying, saying that in the dog's voice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have a pit mix and his name is Nico. He's all brown, has some light coloring around the face. And, with pits, they have such a bad rap. But they're the nicest, sweetest thing.
Oh, they're so sweet. Yeah.
So he was named after a character in a book series that I love and adore, vampires, secret society kind of thing. And a lot of these guys in the team had different skill sets. Nico was the one that made things go boom.
Yes.
He was the arms weapons, So I'm thinking, okay, that equates. But the character was also very nice and sweet behind that facade that he needed to put on there and stuff like that. So I'm like, you are Nico. So every once in a while I go, Nico, how you doing? Because he was Russian. So he has this Russian accent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, Nico, is it going to go outside today?
Oh.
And he looks at me and he goes, no. No. Meh.
Oh. That is great. Our dogs must either think we're so weird or maybe they're really into it.
Or they're like, oh, look at the cute little humans.
Right. I think it's probably a condescending thing where they're like, oh, the humans, they're so adorable.
Yes. It's hilarious how we do that, put personalities to them. But they do have personalities, just like the cats. The cats have that too. Some may be aloof. Others are like very lovey-dovey. So how does that work out for you when you're recording? Do you have a separate room for your booth? Do you go somewhere else? Because, dogs are like, hello, look at me.
So she has really no particular interest in being in the same room as me. And she loves to be outside. And so I moved about 3 years ago onto a property where I've got, like a yard for her and everything. And so she just wants to be outside all the time. And I worry because it'll be even in the winter, like she will not want to come inside. And I'm like, my neighbors are going to call the cops on me. Like I'm letting my dog hang out outside in the cold. You see all those, like online where it's like, if it's too cold for you, it's too cold for them. And I'm like, well, it's too cold for me. And apparently definitely not too cold for her.
Yeah.
So as long as it's nice out, she'll usually be outside when I'm recording, or she'll just be in the living room while I'm in the office recording.
Mm-hmm. So long as you don't pass the feeding time, you're good.
Right. I have had that happen where suddenly I hear click, click outside of the booth. And if I open the door slightly, her face is right there, excuse me.
Yeah.
Meal time. Right.
Yeah. But I'm sure we're like, oh, have I been here too long? Do I need to take a rest? And they're like, no, feed me, bitch.
Right. Yeah. She's like, yeah, I need my food. I don't know what you're going to do with the rest of your night. But
they say if you have animal pets, whether it's a cat or dog, you live longer. So and stuff like that. But I'm like, they're good. They're good. With the accents that you do you have a favorite to perform?
I do really enjoy a good RP accent. I just think that's fun to do. And it's especially fun to do in historical books because I feel like there's just sort of a different, depending on obviously the class of the character, you can do that accent and you can sound very polished, very cut glass in a way that, maybe like a modern Londoner would not sound, but a Londoner in, 1812, like you feel fine about, doing it a little. So I do think that's fun. That's probably the one that I've been working on the longest. When I started doing it, there were problems, obviously, and I'm sure there still are. But, it's just the one that I've had the most experience with, like working with through the years and getting to learn and see my own improvements in it. And that's really fun, too, is to be able to see like how far I've come with accent work.
So on the opposite spectrum of that was the one that you're going, oh, God, we're doing that one. Right? Okay. You need your reward system in front of you. You're going to time yourself because you're...
Oh, I would say probably Irish. It's a fun series of accents to do. I mean, obviously the Irish accent, varies a lot, from region to region, but it does seem to be the hardest one for me to kind of keep in my head while I'm doing it. Like I have these random moments where I'm trying to do one and I'm like, oh, that was Scottish. No, like, what are you doing? Like just random sounds from other accents creeping into it.
Yeah.
Like, let's do that again. So yeah, that's probably the toughest one and the one where I have to focus the hardest and probably have the most redos.
Oh, goodness. And I'm sure then after a while, you're like, oh, there's the Lucky Charms.
Right. I know. And you're like always self-conscious about that. You're like, I hope I don't sound like Lucky the Leprechaun. Want to be respectful of the accent. You don't
absolutely
want to right. Yeah.
But I mean, also it's not sexy,
Right.
Can you imagine?
Right. You don't want this leprechaun narrating this book for you.
Yeah. No, not like that. It's a Lucky Charms. I'm going to get lucky for you.
Right. I don't know. That was pretty sexy. Yeah.
Thank you. Sometimes the words matter more than the accent or the tone. Right. But still, it's a lie.
Yeah.
So in the realm of romance, we have like I like calling like romance being an umbrella term for the genre because we have so many subgenres underneath it. Paranormal, historical, contemporary rom-coms, all these other stuff, including now the newer ones with dark romance, and even new adults is still relatively new. I still can't get over that one.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, okay, new adult, vintage adults, and antique adults. Oh, goodness. I'm like, you're 18 years old. Stop it. Is there one that you have yet to narrate in that you'd like to?
I would be interested in doing some more dark romance. I'm trying to think if I've done something that would officially be billed as a dark romance. Like I've done some paranormals that had like darker elements to it. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, maybe I'd like to try, some of these married to the mob, kidnapped by the mafia kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that used to be traditional, like what a mafia book was like, oh, he kidnapped you because family beef, right?
Right.
Now add a bunch of like, he killed everybody that you know.
Right. I know. Now it seems like it means a different thing now where it's like.
Yeah. It's like, I used to be like, look, he kidnapped you. He beat your brother up for being there trying to protect you. How can you find him? I mean, I know he's gorgeous, but dude, no. And now it's like all these other things from, non-consensual activities to, torture. And you're like, oh, he's hot. I'm like, oh my God.
And it's one of the, like we were saying, like we don't, yuck anyone's yum, but it certainly would not be my thing for reading for pleasure or my thing in real life, but like,
yeah, we would hope.
We would hope. Yeah. But yeah, I think, just as like an interesting like narrator challenge, I think it would be interesting to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an actor's dream to kind of go into things that they've not done in the past to, stretch out, like you stretch out those memory muscles and figure out how to do it and how dark can you get to make it believable. It's definitely something that is intriguing on that aspect. Same thing like writing it. I'm like, okay, like, do they sit there, these authors going, okay, so last time I did this, this, and this, and this. How can I up the ante?
Right. What new torture? Right.
Yes,
can we
exactly.
Do? Yeah.
I mean, like, are they looking into medieval historical stuff? Because I'm going, I'm like, well, there was the rack and
right. Yeah. Go to one of those torture museums for research and be like, yes, this has interesting romance potential. Yeah.
Right. Ma'am, why are you here for? Oh, I'm doing some research. Oh, for what? Romance.
For my romance. Right.
As long as it's accurate, if you are going to go into history, that's something too. I realized that if you're doing anything from a historical, and you that do historical, titles, people will get you. The reviewers, they will. If you get the wrong type of button or the wrong type of cinch on the corset,
oh, I know.
Or some people think that the word "fuck" wasn't used back then. Like, no, yeah, it was. It was used in Shakespearean times, so it was definitely used in Victorian times. Maybe not as much as we do it now.
Yeah.
But they will get you on those reviews. And I'm like, first of all, I'm just trying to figure out how the heck they got that quickly off that corset. Because I know when I had to put one on for the Renaissance Festival.
Right. It's a 2-person job, right?
It is. I'm like, okay, I'm holding you this way. I need someone else to cinch me up and pull the strings and remind me that I need to take that one last breath.
Right. One last breath. Yep.
One last breath. And then I'm going, oh, dear Lord, but they get you. I think that's the biggest fear that of historical authors have is getting it wrong.
Yeah. I know. I feel like you have to just kind of develop a thick skin for that. Because I did, when I wrote mostly contemporary books and then a few historicals a couple years ago. And I love history and I love doing the research for it. And I find it all very fascinating. And I do my best, to be accurate. But also, I think it's important to understand that authors take creative liberties just consciously. So it was always kind of interesting, navigating that. My co-writer and I would be like, oh, we know we're going to get dinged for this. But it would be just a fun phrase to have them say, even if it wasn't used this exact year or, And you see that with a lot of TV shows and stuff. I love the show The Great. And obviously that is wildly anachronistic in all kinds of ways. I feel like if you kind of set the rules of your universe and just try to let readers follow, this is kind of how it's going to be. There are going to be some inaccuracies in these areas because XYZ, and just hope that they sort of pick up on that and that that's the universe you created and that you're trying to be consistent within that universe.
For those that watch Reign on TV, that is not the attire the ladies would wear at court. Okay. I had started watching it when it first came out and other stuff was on. So I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll watch it later. So now I'm on that reruns, thing where I'm just exhausted and I just want something simple and that I'm going to enjoy it. And I started watching and I'm going, yeah, that would have been great for prom, but not back then.
Not back then. Right.
But now I'm like, again, as a girl that loves that period and that timeline, I'm like, no.
Right.
But now I'm like, what else are they going to come up with? And I'm like, I like that dress. Okay. I see that. I see it. So I know.
It. Yeah. You kind of let go of that a little bit and be like, well, you know what? It's still pretty. So
exactly. Right. I'm like, yes, they got the corset right.
Right. As long as they get the corset right.
Or something, right? Oh, goodness. Yeah. I'm telling you, for those that have never worn one, it's not like the ones that you see on the shelves at when there's a store that has a shirt that has a corset on. That looks cute. It gives a little bit more of a form. But these things have bone, like whalebone or other types of bones in them to keep things in and pushed up, and you cannot breathe. Heaven forbid you have to sit.
Yep.
But back in the day, they got used to it to the point where they were doing all sorts of things with it. And I'm like, listen, I wanted to walk and sit. That's what I want to do.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's, if you buy a good corset from a website, they're always, this will require some training to wear, or you'll have to start, at one level and then you can gradually work your way to tightening it. They're no joke.
No, absolutely. See,
Yeah. I do love my costumes. So.
Yes, right. So do you go to Renaissance festivals or do you do more cosplays and go to other places like MegaCon and stuff like that?
I have not done a ton of events. I have gone to a few Renaissance festivals, which are very fun. And I only recently in the past couple of years started going to the Jane Austen Festival in Bath. And so that's been fun. That's kind of my first experience, getting to wear the costumes somewhere other than my house. Yeah, the risk of making myself sound weird, but I do I have all these costumes, and so I'll just put them on in my house. I'll just see how they look. I'll take a couple pictures. I'll take them off. It's a fun hobby, but yeah, it's been nice to kind of get out and bring some of them to actual places and wear them. Yeah.
Well, you do know there are some people that are now that's been on my feed lately is especially around the whole Jane Austen timeline. kind of romanticizing and just enjoying that kind of way. And they're getting dressed to go to work that way. They're going to the grocery stores dressed that way. They're just enjoying it. And they're telling everybody to go fuck off. And I'm like, yes.
Oh, good for them. Yeah. I would love to see more of that and join in on more of that. Yeah. That was fun. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I went to Highclere Castle where they filmed Downton Abbey, and they were doing like their Magic of the Movies weekend, and they were like, you can come dressed as your favorite character. And I was like, oh, I certainly will. So I did, but I was leaving my my B&B in whatever city I was in before that day. So it wasn't like I could like change when I got there or whatever. So I'm just like riding the train, like dressed in this servant's livery. And I'm like, this feels like what I want for my life in general. I don't want to be like the odd one out just being stared at, but I'm like, if everyone would do this,
yes,
I could have so much fun just riding around dressed like this all the time. Yeah.
They did have some fabulous outfits back then. Yeah. I mean, like when I watched anything, I'm a sucker for Jane Austen stuff. So, I have the Pride and Prejudice 2005 movie version, because there's always two camps to that conversation. People the BBC miniseries version over the movie from 2005. And I'm like, it's okay. Matthew McFadden and the lovely things that happen. I'm like, yep, I'm keeping 2005. But a few years ago, PBS did an entire thing, because I think it was her Jane Austen's anniversary of sorts of writing. And they redid a few of them. It was like, thankfully they left Pride and Prejudice alone, but they did Northanger Abbey, Emma, and they were all doing it. So I was in the mood a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, where can I stream these things?
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah. I would tell you, if I had an outfit, I would have worn it and watched that stuff. So
absolutely. Yes.
Watch party at Dark Star. What are y'all doing? We're getting dressed in Imperium costumes.
This is a good idea. I feel like this needs to be proposed.
Yeah. In fact, I'm writing Troy a note. Troy, can we borrow
right
one of their rooms with a screen that can drop down? We'll just project.
We're going to do a movie night.
Oh, what movie? Pride and Prejudice.
Right? We're going to do some Jane Austen. We're all going to be dressed up. And if you need us for anything, actual like narrator author wise, we'll be in here.
Yeah. And also, it's for work. Yes. We're looking at historical, the accents. Yep. That's what it is.
Right.
Yes.
This is for important narrator research.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Plus also tax deduction.
Right. Tax deductible narrator research. Yes.
Oh, goodness. Hey, it's all about how you have fun. This is what we do.
Right. Yeah.
So speaking of Dark Star, so that's the convention that's happening later in the year in August, which seems like a while, but it'll be here quicker than you know it.
It will be here fast.
How excited are you about going to this thing?
I am really excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And, I feel like the only narrator things that I've really done in the past, like I've attended online, like the Audio Publishers Association conference, which is great. And, you learn a lot, and it's, but it's kind of like industry networking with industry. And I just think it's really cool to have an event to go to where we would get to meet readers and listeners and authors. And, I don't know, that just sounds like a lot of fun.
So have you been to a convention like this before as a signing or as an attending at all?
I have done signings as an author in the past. And I went to one like primarily author convention that had a narrator panel as a narrator a few years ago. So I do have some experience with that. But yeah, it'd be my first time like really getting to do like a signing as a narrator.
Well, that's good. You have experience in this arena. Some of them have called me like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Like, what is the thing called swag? And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Others, I'm like, you may have a moment when someone approaches you and starts telling you a story about how your narration of a story really impacted, and then they will start crying. You're fine. You're going to be okay.
Right.
It's not you that you were that bad, and that's why they're crying. It's you were emotionally invested in that, and then you did a good job.
We hope it's not that it's that bad. Right.
If anybody does that shit, though, go up to you and start crying because it was that bad, they need to be smacked because that feels so wrong.
Oh, it's so funny what people say that, like, my experience signing as an author has been, by and large, very positive. Like, people come up if they want to meet you or get to know you or like talk about your books. But I have definitely, like, I had a guy once like come up to me at a signing, like just to tell me about a part in my book he really didn't like. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, thanks for waiting all this time to just tell me to my face. Like,
yeah, some people don't have a filter or think that there's nothing wrong with how they deliver the news or when it's a proper time to deliver any sort of news like that. I've seen it happen and I'm like, what the fuck?
I know. It's like, is this the time? Like, I can't imagine, no matter how much I hated a book or something, I can't imagine like seeking the person out to tell them.
Oh, yeah.
I could like, talk to my friends about it or whatever. I mean, that takes some gall to like go up to someone just to be like, and he wasn't even like nasty about it or anything. It was like genuinely almost like helpful feedback or something.
Yeah.
He's like, I just really did not like this. And I did not find that, to be like a good part of the plot or whatever. And I'm like, thanks. I mean, I'm not going to change it now. And I'm certainly not going to change it based on what you said. So.
Yeah. Again, people.
Yeah,
right.
I
will say that these, like the Dark Star Con is one of the few times that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go people. That's a good thing, Vivi. That's a good thing. We're going to go people because at least it's more, like-minded, get to explore and hang out with people and friends that online that you haven't met in person. And then also, of course, get to meet you guys. So that's always fun.
Right. Yes. But it is important to psych yourself up for the people. Yeah. Like I end up having fun when I go people, but then the actual part where I have to convince myself to leave my house and go do it. I'm like, why would I do this? And then I do it and I'm like, oh, because it's fun. Yeah.
And then you're exhausted when you get back and you're like, damn it, no.
Right. I'm like, I'm never leaving my house again until the next time. Right.
That's why people always like, I am an introvert. And I know sometimes people tend to recently be using that as I'm cute, I'm an introvert, but I'm like, no, like I really am an introvert. But I have with social tendencies. So for things like this, people swear that I'm like the social butterfly extrovert. And I'm like, no, I know I need to be on. It's exhausting. So when I go crash, you're not going to see me for until tomorrow morning. And then after this event, you won't see me for a while.
Yes, that is exactly it. Yeah.
Hasn't stopped people from knocking at the door at 11 o'clock at night at these conventions saying, you won't believe who's at the bar. And I'm like, better make it good.
I'm in my comfy clothes. What?
Well, exactly. And they're like, come on. I'm like, I need to get dressed. And they're like, and they do the whole pointing to themselves, like, look what I'm wearing. And it's PJs too. I'm like, well, fuck it.
Right. It's not, as long as everyone's in PJs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I'd love to do with our guests, aside from talking to you guys all the time, because this is always great, is to play a couple of games, which in my bio, like back in the day when I was thinking about being a psychologist, this is where I get my kicks. So one of the games is the two truths and a lie, where you tell us 3 things about yourself and we have to guess which one's the lie. It's always fun because you guys get very creative. And at the end of the day, it's all about the details. So if you're ready.
I'm ready. Yes.
All right. What are your 3 things?
Okay. I can't swim. I hate cheese. I used to work in a traveling sideshow.
Okay. And this is where it's like, oh, she was quick, no details, and just bam.
Do people usually, do they like tend to like share the story behind it or what?
Oh my goodness. I've had people that come up with an entire story on these events and stuff, like, like I, had to pee at a snake, and then they tell me the entire story as to why they end up having to pee on a snake. And that is a true story. Someone did do that.
I know. I kind of feel like that would be the giveaway to the truth, is like if they have an involved story about it, like, because the whole truth is stranger than fiction thing.
Yes. But they've had those type of stories for all 3.
But also for the lies. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, and then others have been like yours, just real straight. And others will be like, yeah, the boyfriend convinced me to do the skydive. And then they have smaller stories. And so I'm like, all right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I didn't even think about, like a whole story for each. Yeah. I'll just be brief and mysterious.
Yes. And then I had one that said, I lived in city. I lived in city. I lived in city. And I'm going, okay.
It's like one of those like security questions or something that you get online where it's like, what address has this person not lived, in the last 5 years?
Yes. Yeah. Either that or I'm going, oh, you were that kid in school, huh?
Yeah.
What? I did it. All right. So for you can't swim, or you hate cheese, or you have traveling with a sideshow.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So which is the lie? Is it that you hate cheese, the lie?
I hate cheese is a truth.
Oh, okay. I don't know if we can be friends anymore. No, I'm just kidding.
I know that. Yeah, there have been a lot of friendships that have been threatened over this. But I feel very passionately about it. So.
It's okay. You will have to create a different kind of charcuterie board for you.
Right?
All right. So Cancer or travel sideshow. Ooh, okay. I kind of want the travel and sideshow be the truth, because that would just be like how, like why. But is that the lie?
The sideshow is a truth. Yeah.
Oh, see, good. Should have listened to my gut again. Yeah. So you can't swim is the lie.
Right. Yes. I can swim. Fortunately, for any boat trips I might take. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be fine. But yes.
Traveling sideshow?
Yeah. It was a few years back. And I feel like this sentence like worked at a traveling sideshow. Like the other performers were so cool. Like they could do all the cool sideshow stuff, like eating fire and swallowing swords and like throwing knives. And my job was mostly to talk the acts. I was kind of like the narrator of the sideshow. Yeah. And I did a couple of like sort of the illusion, like magic trick type things too. But I couldn't do anything awesome like eating fire. But it was a really cool experience. It was kind of the last like real like traveling sideshow in America. And they just go from town to town, and we would set up for a few days and perform the act. Sometimes it would be like, I can think of a couple spots where there was like a full like circus performance, and then we actually got to be like sort of the traditional sideshow, like beside the circus. But yeah, it was awesome. I love to travel, and I really like unique experiences, and it was really fun to be on the road for that long and get to see a lot of random small towns in America. It was like, oh, I would never have heard of this town otherwise.
No, I sure that sometimes when they come even here to Florida, and please don't hold that against me.
Right.
No, I felt that was going there. I'm working on getting out. Okay. You see some of these, like when you're traveling from one part or another, some of these random names, and I'm going, did I just say Tittiesville?
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, Tittiesville? Like,
are we in Tittiesville? Yeah.
And then I'm like, we're looking, and he's like, my husband's like, it's Titusville. I'm like, I like Tittiesville better.
Got it. Right. I'm just going to call it Tittiesville.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, goodness. Yeah, I mean, but I can also picture you going up to one of the guys or the girls that do the sword eating or the eating the fire, and you're like, teach me, just for shits and giggles.
I feel like I should have taken more advantage of that. But yeah, I feel like there are a lot of risks I'm willing to take. But the fire in my mouth, I was like, I don't know. Or more, I think the fuel, like having the fuel like in your mouth and lungs and stuff, I was like,
well, considering you don't like cheese, I would hope that your standards mean that you're not going to do that either, right?
Yeah.
Because I can understand the stinkier, smellier cheese, and some of those that you're going, because it's just like fermented, and that's how it's supposed to be. And apologies for those that do like that kind of cheese. We can't all be friends, and that's okay to like different things. But like for you, is it like cheese in general that you're like, nope?
I know. And I've always felt that, and I've tried a lot of different types of cheese in my life. Weirdly enough, just had a dream, or I guess a nightmare last night, that I was trying to make myself eat a cheese ball. I woke up and I was like, what? Like, where did this come from? But yeah, it was quite an involved dream where I'm like trying to take bites of it, but I kept like spitting them out. I'm like, God, this is disgusting. And
well, I just had a vision of if you were a character in one of these dark romances.
Oh my God, right. The torture. I think maybe I need to write my own dark romance now.
Right?
Instead of like tortured by the mafia, like her whole family's killed. She's just like kidnapped and given a cheese ball. And
or, like by day he moonlights as the farmer and the dairy farmer.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
By night, he rules the city.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like this has potential, like both for like a dark romance and like a rom-com where, where like they meet cute, and then she finds out too late that he's like the cheese purveyor, of the town.
We cannot be together, but why?
It will never work, right?
Because you're a first-time guest, you wouldn't know this next part, but we do have the Patreon section because I greatly appreciate the Patreons. That's how I'm able to continue to do this because editing costs and that covers it. But one of the things that we do for the patrons as exclusive content is play the game of Would You Rather, where I make you guys choose between two things, because that's always fun. So we'll still do that, but we'll just not do this particular question because we're doing it now. So the question has always been like, would you rather tell everyone your guilty pleasures or never partake in any of those guilty pleasures again? And that is it, right? We don't go any further than that. The kind of fun afterwards, once you let me know one way or the other, usually is, oh yeah, I'll tell everybody my guilty pleasures. And I'm like, would you though? Right? And so the running joke has always been like, it's okay. So next time you're on the show, I'm going to ask you.
Right.
We're going to have that conversation, and never really have, because people always think like the guilty pleasures are these, nefarious kind of acts in the bedroom or other places. And I'm like, no, it literally could be like eating cheese.
Right. Yeah.
That to me, it was like when I was kind of doing this stuff, I'm like, what? Oh. And again, it's been fun. So, let's talk about your guilty pleasures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I feel like I would definitely rather tell the world my guilty pleasures than never do them again. Yeah.
So what do you consider your guilty pleasures?
So I don't know if you have seen the movie The Meg about the giant shark.
I've heard of it. I've seen it on my feed.
Okay. Well, it's not a guilty pleasure that I love sharks. I do. I love sharks, and I'm super into like shark conservation and things like that. And so maybe the reason I feel guilty about some of my like shark book interests is that I do feel, like it can contribute to like a negative image of sharks if like every book is about sharks, going and like killing people and everything. And, and I would never want to participate in hurting sharks' reputation, but I do love like a good killer shark book or killer shark movie. And so the Meg books, my dad got me into them when I was like a kid. I mean, I think the first one came out in like 1997 or something. So I love those books. And I feel like they maybe don't match up with the rest of my literary taste so much, but I can't get enough. And again, everyone can like what they like who's to say what's good or bad? I would say I adore how action-packed they are. As far as like the actual prose, it's maybe something to be desired, maybe. But, I think there's so much fun. So definitely. And my mom, she's an English teacher. And so we've always like shared books like throughout my whole life, and like, oh, I just read this book. And, like I would say our main genre is like literary fiction and stuff. So, we're like, oh, and the sentences in this book are just so gorgeous and whatever. And then like, she'll find me like reading like Meg 6, and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, everyone needs a break from literature,
Yes. I did not know that the movie was based on books. I always thought that someone was like at a studio office saying, we haven't done this in a while. Let's make a big ass shark.
The shark should be even bigger. Right. Yeah.
Right? It's like, go big or go home.
Yeah. It's based on a book series that is still ongoing. So I've been long awaiting the final book in the series. The author has had some health problems, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, whenever he's feeling better and up to it, I cannot wait for the conclusion. And I have sometimes thought, how sometimes you're like, the space that's occupied in my mind with like this information, like what if it were used for something more useful? Like sometimes I think that about like knowing like every Meg in each of the Meg books, because they all have names. There are like different Megs in each book. And I'm like, could this brain space be used for something, something else? And my brain's like, nope. Just going to keep a running list of favorite Megs. And yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, my senior year in high school, so I was an AP student and 4.0 kind of GPA. I'm sure that doesn't surprise many of you. And my senior year, I had a bunch of electives because I technically could have graduated earlier, but school didn't let me. But anyways, so there were times where I would step in and teach my English classes because the teaching did great stuff. And we were talking about Beowulf. And they were the class, and some of my peers, because I was in that class, they're like, because the teacher's like, Viv, you get this. Can you explain it to them? And I'm like, okay, all right, guys, Beowulf. Do you remember like Jaws 3 where the mom Jaws gets upset that they killed the baby? Okay, well there you go. That's the monster, and the so that's that. And then you think, remember the show Hercules? Yes, so he's the hero, and they're like, oh, I'm like, there you go.
That is amazing. I am never going to look at Beowulf without thinking of Jaws 3 again.
Yeah. So that type of information, I'm like, where can I put Xena in this?
Right. How do we fit Xena in?
Yes. She was way better than Hercules, but still.
Right. Yes. Yes. Die on this hill. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But I was like, my teacher was like, how that? I'm like, we all get things differently.
Right.
So you could totally use your knowledge of the Meg at one point in time to explain something.
Exactly. Guys, this is exactly like in Meg 4 Hell's Aquarium, where, like, right.
Knows the names.
I know. The names just kill me. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But again, it goes back into what a lot of people might deem as like useless information that we all know. For me, I've always found it to be rather, eclectic. But also like, okay, well, you have a different way of looking at things, and then you can do things like explain Beowulf to people.
Yes, you never know when it's going to come in handy.
Yeah.
I remember reading a spicy fanfic a few years ago, a Titanic fanfic, and it mentioned Fifth Officer Lowe in it. And then that was a question on Jeopardy, like a couple weeks later. And I was, playing alongside my friend because we like to watch Jeopardy together and play along. And I was like, oh my God, who is Fifth Officer Lowe? And he's like, how do you know the officers on the Titanic? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Just, history class. Sure. Like,
sure. It's surprising sometimes what sticks,
Right,
and,
yeah.
But it's all in good fun. But yeah, so maybe we'll add Meg into that list of movie nights or Dark Star. Maybe, since I haven't really watched it. But it might be fun to watch it with someone like you that's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you all the ways the plot diverges from the book. Like,
see? It's not like the book.
Right.
People are going to come to you now at the events that you're going to be going to and maybe bring you something that's a shark-esque, something for you to sign. That would be so cool.
That would be so delightful.
Or little gifts for you to have. Here's a shark.
I cannot have enough sharks in my life. So I think my brother a few years back got me a wine holder that was shaped like a shark's head and the bottle's in the shark's mouth. And then like 2 years later, another friend gave me a different one, but like the same, like a shark wine holder. And now I've just got them both in my kitchen side by side. I'm like, you cannot have enough shark's heads holding your wine bottles. It's just, yeah.
See if you get you a nice looking pillow that you can sign or have people sign for you.
Yeah.
Put that in the living room there.
Exactly. Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
The other thing that happened on the show has, to me, a few times, you guys, sometimes you guys go rogue and you start asking me questions. And then for us, I don't pick up on it for a second because some of you guys have been very sly about it. And I'm like, wait, hold on. No. No one wants to know about me. I already gave you guys little tidbits as we're having these conversations about myself. And, that's where the rogue kind of has come in. You're like, but I want to know.
Oh, I'm sure you do. Yeah.
Right. And so now I'm like, I'm going to give you all the opportunity to do to the segment of like, ask me anything. And if you guys had any questions, this is a time to me being a control freak at all. No.
Here's a designated time.
Yes. Go rogue now.
Right. Well, I was tempted to ask while we were talking about cheese and me not liking it, if there's something similar for you, like a food thing that like everyone seems to like, but you really hate, or, one that you love that everyone else hates. Do you have a food thing?
Yeah. So I grew up not being forced to try anything because my mother grew up being forced to try everything.
Yes.
Yes. And so, she was from Latin America and Chile, which is by the coast. So talk about octopus and everything in the seas kind of a thing. And she's like, no. She has us and she's like, I'm not going to torture my children with this. And if we said no, it was no. And while we were really good eaters as children, as we got into the school systems and, that happens, the eating habits change. And so I didn't have my first pepperoni pizza until I was 19. I didn't have my first Caesar salad until I was 19. and kind of growing. And, so the one thing for me, because I'm so big on texture and I just can't do it, is like mayonnaise. Like, I call it the white gunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, honey, he's like, can you make me a sandwich? Sure. He goes, can you put some mayonnaise? I go, okay, yeah, the white gunk. Okay.
The white gunk. Right. Yeah. What a fun texture. Yeah. That is. I also don't like mayonnaise. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just, there's something about it. And so now fast forward when I'm going to culinary school, because again, my eating habits are that of a 5-year-old in many cases. And I had to make mayonnaise from scratch.
Ooh, culinary school. Okay. Yeah.
And I had to try foods that I was like, I literally closed my mouth. I had a chef feeding me, which in any other moment was like, and he was good looking too. So I was like, fuck.
Oh, so that doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Right. It was like in any other scene, kind of a movie, you see it's sexy and stuff. And here I'm going, open your mouth. And I'm going,
Oh, that is interesting. And you ended up trying things, like even things you did not want to.
Yes, I did try a couple of things that I was like, nope. And then otherwise I'm going, I'm an adult. You can't make me.
Right. Were there any that you tried and were pleasantly surprised by, or was it pretty much what you thought?
There were some that I was very rarely. And there's like, nope, see, told you. I realized that if it was done differently, like cooked differently, like I don't like fish because of various different reasons. But I remember growing up, my mom, cheeky girl she was at times, she laughed one time when I said that. And I'm like, why are you laughing? And she's like, because you used to eat fish. I go, nuh-uh. He goes, remember those chicken nuggets I used to make you? I'm like, yes, they're really good. When she goes, yeah, that was fish.
That was fish sticks. Yeah.
She goes, it's tilapia. Tilapia can mask itself. It doesn't have a smell or anything like that. Texture wise, when you do it like a chicken nugget, it's almost because it's more, mushed kind of thing. I'm like, oh, you love
traitor. Yeah.
Traitor.
Okay, so apparently you did at one time enjoy tilapia.
Yeah, and so that's when I realized that depending on how it's cooked, so smaller, like there's things that when they're larger, like for example, hamburgers. I like hamburgers, but I cannot deal with a thick patty because of texture. You will see me at restaurants sometimes cut that patty in half and things like that, or like where I love Five Guys because they smush it.
Yeah.
So you will see me at some places like smush the sandwich on
right.
Five. Yeah. But I had to, for culinary school, try a lot of things. And other times I was like the mayonnaise, I was like, no. Right. Not testing
that
the white
is
gunk.
A hard limit.
That's a hard
yes.
no. That is my safe word.
Safe word. Yep.
And then the chef was like, how are you going to find out that if you did it the right way? And I go, hey, you follow the recipe.
Yes. See, I'm vegetarian and have been for most of my life. And I worked as a cook at a ranch for one season. And so I did have to make a lot of meat recipes, which cooking meat doesn't really, bother me. I just don't want to eat it. And usually if you were a cook, you had someone else like working with you.
Yes.
Who could like try things. But pot roast night was my night. And for whatever reason, there wasn't anyone else on staff. It was like me in charge of the pot roast dinner every week. And yeah, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to try it to make sure it's okay. So we just have to hope. And that was the one that I would get the most compliments, from guests on. They're like, your pot roast is really good. And I'm like, I'm glad because I've never
I wouldn't have known.
I just follow the recipe. Like that's,
yeah.
Somebody more talented at cooking meat than I am came up with this long ago. And if you just do it right, then it's usually fine.
If you just follow it. Yeah, usually those would do that. And then they're like, but what if it's wrong or you did it too much? And I go, do you see everyone else in this classroom? I go, I will ask someone.
Right. Just ask someone.
Yeah, just ask someone because they started getting smart. I'm like, listen, on this smart game, you're not going to win. Well, what if they're going to try to say that it's good when it's not in case for you to fail? And I'm like, I'm not stupid. I know who to pick.
Right. Right. I know who my friends are. Yeah.
And I mean, that's been challenged a few years ago, but
ooh, okay.
When it comes down to certain things like this, well, I'm like, I can see the competition in people's eyes and things like that. I'm like, I'm not going to go with someone that's being an ass. I'm going to be like, listen, I'm 5 years old and I will do the dishes for you.
Right. Please. Pretty please.
I go, what is your food of choice of no? I will try that.
Right. I will try that one for
my
you.
wheel.
Yes. Yeah. Please say cake.
Yes, exactly.
Did you enjoy culinary school?
I loved it. One of my love languages, and I love helping people and serving people. I'm the girl behind the curtain that helped you like with your lines or provide you with insights and all that fun stuff. And I don't need to have the praise in front of the curtain by others, right? The whole thing with food is expressing the artsy parts of my brain, but it was always about, the conversation. So good food, good conversation kind of thing. And even before I went to culinary school, I was doing, dinner parties and things like that and different ways. And I loved it. I wanted to. And still the plan is one day I will own like an old B&B somewhere like in North Carolina or something like that with that I can kind of have a restaurant, almost like Gilmore Girls, where the locals can still go to the restaurant, but still part of the B&B for the guests. Yeah, and stuff like that. But it has to have a minimum of one ghost because there's got to be a niche, right?
This keeps getting better because this has been one of my dreams too. Is like, what if I could cook at a B&B? And I'm always like, it needs to be haunted though.
Yes,
obviously,
exactly.
So I am totally with you on this. You need this ghost B&B.
So yeah, it's just one of the things that I love to do. So I still do it here and there. I'm a little bit on strike right now in my household because I clean as I go. They do not.
Yeah, that's always a tough mismatch.
Yeah. So I'm like, and as soon as I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in the mood to cook this, and this, and it's something nice and cute or whatever, fancy. And then I go get the pot and it's in the sink. I'm like, fuck that shit. Ordering pizza, cereal and milk it is.
Yes.
I'm like, and they're like, but you want, I'm like, but see.
But not right now. Yeah.
So yeah, it is one of my things that I want to do is like one of these days when I do one of these conventions is to kind of get like the presidential suite that has a kitchen so I can cook for you guys. And just have people come over to food. Yeah. Make sure I'm like, just stay on this corner, Jill, because the other corner has the cheese.
Right. This is cheese corner.
This is all the vegetarian stuff is on this side with no cheese because, Jill's here. Everything
right
on this side.
We got to cater to Jill. Yep.
But I love doing that. I have done that too. I have cooked 4 or 5 different meals for the exact same night because you're coming over, someone else is coming over, so-and-so is here and so-and-so is there.
I like doing that too. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad because I always assume if I'm going to dinner at someone's house that I'm like the annoying one. But I mean, I love cooking, but I also like catering to different, diets. I like if it's like a diet that I'm not familiar with, like learning what I could cook for that. Like, I think it's really fun. Yeah.
I think that stems from my being an identical twin. And people were always like, oh, if your sister likes this, you like it too. I'm like,
then you must too. You're identical.
Exactly.
Right?
So I treat everyone with the uniqueness of themselves and kind of cater to that.
That's interesting. Does your twin like mayonnaise?
Her palate is significantly wider than mine in that sense. She's done a lot of different things. And as far as cooking, and she actually, funny enough, someone that, oh my God, growing up and even into our early 20s and stuff like that. Anytime she's like, oh, I'm going to cook. We're like, no,
right. Nope.
Someone else, anybody else. Because this is the girl that would burn the eggs because she liked them well done. I'm like, listen, Frances, I love you. But there's a difference between well done eggs, no runniness versus burnt.
Right. Burnt eggs.
Burnt eggs. And I know the flavoring might be a little, but there's seasonings that can have that smokiness to it too.
Yeah.
Not burnt. And now she's like, later in life, she's doing a lot more cooking and even baking. And she did a bread one time. And I'm like, oh, this is really good.
Oh, good job.
Yeah, she's been great. So like our birthday's coming up. She's like, I'll make you bread. I'm like, okay, that would be my gift. Perfect. And just make sure it's as good as the last time. Please. Yeah. Just don't.
Right. Just don't try anything wild with it. You're doing great. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it comes from that. A lot of people assuming the identical part, meaning our preferences. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about like that assumption that people might make about identical twins.
Well, it means you look alike, right?
Right. So why wouldn't you act alike and eat alike and,
Absolutely. Like have your own personality. Like, yeah.
Right. It's amazing to think that 2 separate human beings could have separate personalities and tastes and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think because what we known of twins, especially specific identical twins, it literally is 1 egg, 1 sperm, 1 person splitting out into 2. And so like I excelled in the English and the arts, stuff like that. She was excellent at math and sciences. She took my SAT test the one time that we switched.
That's amazing.
You go and say like, have you ever switched like on a day? Like, no, for like classes
Right.
and tests. I tried twice. I failed. I'm like, Francis, here you go. Take a lesson.
You got to do me a solid. All right.
Take my test and things like that. But I mean, we're complete. So in this case, we're now polar opposites in many cases. And so for the guy, I'm very lovey-dovey. She is very cold, or she says I'm emotionally needy. I say that she's cold.
Right.
I'm like,
different perspectives. Yeah.
So, like, I just like lovey-dovey. I like hugs. All our pictures growing up, you'll see me hugging her.
And she's just kind of like standing like with her arms to the sides. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's like, I tolerate this. So yeah. Then needless to say, learned about love languages differently and how people's style stuff goes, Yeah. Like, I'm like, I love you. She's like, yeah, okay, here's this. And she'll buy me something.
Aw.
And I'm like, yeah, because I'm easily pleased. I'm so low maintenance is not even funny.
Excellent.
But yeah, see, you did. Now, see, again, kind of going rogue there. You get not only one question, but you got 2 or 3 in there. So you're good.
Well, there were follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Like any good journalist.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yes. That's like, I had someone bust out with that rationale. And I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yep.
But before we go, because we're fortunately having to come to that end part, which I always hate. So I'm like, I could talk to you guys forever. Little things, tidbits and stuff like that.
So fun.
Yeah. We'll do that. Before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you that you can share?
Oh, okay. Yes. So currently I am working on a couple of alien romances in Alma Nilsson's Renaissance Alliance series. And so that's been a super fun series. Like, she just does amazing world building, like really, great romance, great like sex scenes and everything. But yeah, the world building, the different alien culture that like all these human women end up getting roped into is just really interesting. So yeah, I'm finishing out that series for her, and I'm doing a couple of co-narrated projects with Adam Beckett. We're doing some of Chloe Maine's contemporary romances. And so yeah, those have been super fun too. Like, she just does these short little books, and just amazing, like that she can get like a full plot into these like short little books. And, it's just really fun to dual narrate with someone and create these characters. And yeah, so I'm excited for doing more of that series too.
Yeah, and that's always like a little bit of a loaded question with all these NDAs, and I can't say this and I can't say that. And I'm like, listen, I just want to know. I'm like, I go, are you an alien in one? Are you like a fire in another one? And then, damsel in distress in the third. Okay.
Right. I know. So as far as I know, I have not signed NDAs on any of these, but yeah.
The little things, I just want to know what's coming up so I can add that to my calendars. Because I did say that plural, calendars.
The calendars. I know. Yeah. The modern life, let me tell you.
I had someone's like, but you can do that electronically and color code. You like color coding, Viviana. You like spreadsheets. I'm like, yeah, for certain things. And I do love a good spreadsheet. Don't get me wrong.
Okay. Ooh,
yeah, right. Color coding. Yeah, baby.
That does it for you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh. But there's certain things I'm like, no, I need to flip. I need to look. I need to compare, and nothing fixes that rather than a calendar. And, so yeah.
I'm starting to feel right now like I need a separate calendar just for like house maintenance, like just like what maintenance people are coming when, because I feel like my house is getting to that point where everything's starting to reach the end of its lifespan.
Oh God, yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want all these like appointments like color coded on my nice like audiobook narration calendar.
Right.
Like, let's start calendar number 2 for just when the people are coming to look at the furnace. Like, yeah.
And then people are like, they've asked me like, okay, well then you had to compare. And I'm like, no, this becomes a non-work day because people are coming over, kind of like that. Or the morning hours get crossed out. And then that means I have something else. So I just look in the other calendar. Like, they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I have a system.
Right. There's a whole system. Yeah.
Madness. But there is a system.
As long as it works for you and makes sense to you, that's what matters.
Exactly. Yeah. And if the chaos, it's okay. It's life.
the organized chaos.
Yes, it is. Exactly. It's been so much fun. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today. It's been fun.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
If you're not following Jill on social media, don't worry, I got you. We're going to put all the links where you can find them on this episode's post over at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. Make sure to grab your Dark Star tickets now. They are selling fast. And to meet your favorite authors and narrators, visit Darks.com's website, which is www.darks.con.com. Did not think that through. To learn more about this event and purchase your tickets. And until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookloving. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.